regulations. I just had to take up some legal issues with the attorneys. Y'all are going to get your steps in today. Please proceed. Yes.
So, Zach, you testified about information that John has provided you related to concerns he had about Christina Parcella, especially in conjunction with Aida Melo. We talked about the time period April. I want to move to May. In May of 2021, were you and John Melo continuing to communicate about the situation?
Yes.
In May of 2021, what, if anything, did John ask you to do for him?
Given the extremely grave nature of John's concerns for his daughter, especially while she was in the custody of her mother, Christina Parcella, and potentially being exposed to her mother's boyfriend, Brad Post, who John believed was a pedophile and is a pedophile.
Objection.
Sustained. I instruct you to totally disregard the last comments made by this defendant.
And Zach, could you just tell this jury what John asked you to do?
Yes. Given his concerns, John asked me that if I believed his daughter was in grave danger, would I be willing to kill Christina Parcella for $5,000?
What did you say when he asked you that?
I was shocked and insulted by the request, and I gave him an immediate and unequivocal no.
So he offered you $5,000 if you would kill Christina Parcella, and you said no.
That's correct.
At some point, did he revisit that subject?
Yes.
Did he make you another offer?
Yes, he did.
How long after the first offer did he make the second offer?
I'm not certain, but I would say maybe 2 or 3 weeks later.
Tell this jury about that.
He was becoming increasingly more worried and distressed about the safety of his daughter. I was as well. The more I learned about this situation and everything, and a lot more than what I've told you, I was also...
Sustained.
What was the second offer?
The second offer, he asked me again, if I became convinced that his daughter was in danger, would I be willing to kill Christina Parcella for $10,000?
What did you, or how did you respond to that offer?
I told him, John, there's no amount of money that would ever tempt me to do something like this. And I told him I was insulted that he even thought that would be something I would consider. So I told him I would never do something like this for money. I told him the only way I would ever consider taking action like this is if I was absolutely convinced that his daughter was not only in danger, but that the only way to rescue her from that danger would be to take Christina Parcella's life.
Let's talk about what else is going on in your life in May of 2021. Tell this jury what you're doing with the music project with Tom Strange, how that's going.
We'd been at the project recording the sonatas in the museum, like I talked about, for about 5 months. This, of course, I was doing in conjunction with all the help I was trying to provide John and Aida. So the music project on its own would have been incredibly stressful. And with everything else, I was just approaching burnout. Honestly, I was having a really hard time meeting my deadlines. And I was worried that the quality of the work I was doing was going to be going down. And I was just at the point where I needed a vacation, honestly.
And we're going to get to that in just a second. Tell the jury about your compensation as it relates to the music project with Tom Strange.
It was just an arrangement of a flat fee for all 32 sonatas. I was going to receive $5,000.
And if you broke that down on an hourly basis, how much were you getting paid per hour for that project?
Probably less than $1, but it was a labor of love.
During this time, were you also doing other things to try to make money to support yourself, or was it?
Yes, I was giving some outdoor concerts on the Wind's lawn, and these were donation-based, so people were supporting me financially in that regard.
You talked about needing a vacation at the end of May. Describe a little bit more to the jury the fatigue and why you believed at the end of May that a break would do you some good.
Well, I needed a break. My nature is usually to just try to push through stuff like that. I can push myself too far. So I was not necessarily seeking out a break or a vacation, but I was definitely at the point where I needed one for the sake of my work, for the sake of my health.
Did you get that break?
Yes, I did.
Describe for the jury how that came about.
Like I said, John and I were communicating pretty much every day at this point. Much of it, if not most of it, about Aida. But I was also mentioning to him what I was doing. Certainly times when he needed me to do something and I would have to say, I can't, I'm practicing, I'm recording something like this. So he told me, I think he said, like in the rock and roll business, we say you have a monkey on your back. Like the project is starting to own you and you just need to step away from it. You're too close to it and you've been in it for too long. So he suggested that I come and visit him in Italy.
Did you take him up on that suggestion?
Yes, I did.
Initially, what was your reaction to that offer?
Initially, I didn't want to. Like I said, it's my nature to just kind of push through things, but with some more time, I realized that some time off from the piano would probably do me good.
So when did you go to Italy to visit John?
I think in either the very last days of May or first days of June, 2021.
Who paid for your travel?
I did.
When you arrived in Italy, where did you stay?
I stayed at John Melo's apartment.
How long were you there?
Between 3 and 4 weeks.
Do you remember where in Italy you were?
Yes, it was a town called Rovigo. It's not too far from Venice.
When you were visiting in Italy, where was Aida Melo?
She was in Greenville with her mother.
Even though Aida was not in Italy, while you were in Italy, did you have an opportunity to see Aida?
Yes, I did.
Describe for the jury what that opportunity was.
John had video visits ordered by the guardian ad litem, who you've seen before, Vanessa Cornlow, to have video visits twice a week with Aida. So he even with the time difference, was always setting timers and alarms and making me set timers and alarms to make sure he wouldn't be late for these visits. Like, he lived for these visits every week. So often it might be 11 p.m. or midnight in Italy, but that was when Aida was free, so that's when they'd have their visit. And I would often be within earshot to where I could hear their conversation. Often I would be able to observe the screen of his phone or computer, so I could see Aida's face, her disposition. And on one occasion, I said hi to her.
What did you notice about her, or what did you conclude about her while you were watching Aida during these visitations?
So John had been telling me for weeks, Zach, Christina's killing my little girl. Like, I can see the spark dying in her eyes. And again, when I first heard that, I thought, aren't you being a little dramatic? Like, I hadn't seen her, but it just seemed a bit much. When I saw her in these visits, I didn't feel that way anymore. She was not the same little girl that I had known in Greenville when I first met them. She had put on a great deal of weight, probably about 20 pounds, which is roughly a quarter of her body weight. For an 8-year-old girl, that's a lot in a short period of time, but it was much more than that. It was her demeanor. Her spirit was just, she was morose, she was depressed. Like, that spunky, precocious, lively little girl that I had met was just not present there. It was a complete change in character. And I mean, John would ask her how she was doing, and she would always try to give a good response. Like, she would try to smile and say, "Oh, I'm fine, Daddy," and try to put on a good face. But it was clear that she was doing that because she didn't want to worry her dad. She didn't want him to realize how poorly she was doing, and it just reminded me so much of myself when I was a little older than she was, with what I've previously described with Grace. It's this, you internalize things. Like, she's a strong person, and she was trying to be stronger than she was probably ready to be at that age. And despite the stoic, strong exterior she was trying to put on, I could just see that she was being tortured. Like, she was drowning, and him saying that the spark was dying in her eyes was absolutely accurate. I could see it, I could hear it in her voice, I could tell it in her demeanor.
So, when you came, wait, back up. When did you leave Italy to return to Greenville County?
At the end of June 2021.
When you returned to Greenville in June of 2021, based on everything that you knew and had been made aware of, and I want to start in June, what, if anything, in June of 2021 did you do to act on what you knew?
I had described the mailers that I had put together before, and the state has talked about them a lot. All of these mailers contained information that I believe had been put out publicly and by Christina Parcella's free will. So this was all information that had been available publicly, and that, to the best of my knowledge, was true. And I began to send these mailers to Christina Parcella and her boyfriend and people in the neighborhood for a threefold purpose. I wanted parents around that neighborhood to know that their children were not safe around her or around Rad Post. I wanted different people associated with this, such as the guardian ad litem, the police, to have access to this information so that they would have all the evidence that I was looking at, that clearly demonstrated that Christina Parcella was a danger to children and her own daughter. And I also wanted there to be social pressure on Christina Parcella, because something, again, about people like Grace and Christina Parcella is the facade that they erect around themselves and the image that they put forward to the world is so important to them. They're narcissists. And it is a facade. It's completely untrue. But I was hoping that it wouldn't be worth it to her for other people to see her for what she was, in exchange for her trying to fight to have her daughter.
You sent multiple mailers beginning in June and going into July of 2021, is that correct?
Yes, I did.
Did those mailers and the effect those mailers had do anything to alleviate your concerns?
No, they didn't. If anything, Christina Parcella and Brad Post just dug their heels in deeper.
After the mailers were sent, do you know whether or not they had any effect on? Back up. I want to talk about after the mailers were sent. Did you learn of a video call or about a video call that John, who was in Italy, had with Aida, who was in Greenville?
Yes.
What did you learn about that video call?
Shortly after these mailers would have arrived, John described a call to me where he said Christina was, at the end of the call, she took the phone and turned it towards her face, which she usually did not do. And he said she was more angry than I've ever seen her. And he would often talk about how you would never see her angry, like she was very good at controlling her emotions and not showing if you had made her angry. And she took the phone and didn't say anything, but just slid her finger across her throat as if that she was threatening that she was going to have him killed for what she believed he was doing.
After the mailer, or the last mailer, did John share with you any information he had received via email?
Yes, he well, he didn't describe it, he sent it to me. An email he had received from someone he knew in the biker community, motorcycles. And Brad Post was also involved in the biker community, or at least tried to be. And this email was from this acquaintance of John telling John that Brad Post had been going around essentially asking for someone to, quote, put the hurt on John Melo, and that he was offering a lot of money to make this happen.
Don't come up here. I'm going to sustain you, Jack. Let's do your side.
Zach, we talked about the fact that you testified that you sent the mailers, you've explained why. I want to talk about something else you did for the purpose of acting on a concern. Take a look at what's been marked as Defense Exhibit 47. Is that an affidavit that you completed for the purpose or in connection with the pending family court litigation between John Melo and Christina Parcella?
Yes, it is.
Your Honor, this is defense counsel version. This is already in evidence. The state put that in. Zach, let's talk about this affidavit.
Is that the one from September?
Yes, Your Honor. Yes. Zach, why did you draft this affidavit?
I was extremely concerned about the danger that Aida was in, and I wanted to try to provide the family court with information about my opinion and my observations about her that would hopefully cause them to return Aida to John so that she would no longer be in danger.
Did this affidavit, well, let me back up. To whom did you send this affidavit?
I had it notarized, and then I think I scanned it and probably emailed it to John or left it with his family court attorney, Samantha Larkins, at the time.
One second. Let's move on. So that affidavit was, I believe, September the 21st of 2021, is that correct?
I don't remember the date other than it being in September.
I'll show it to you.
Yes, the 21st day of September 2021.
And you testified that after you submitted that affidavit, that did not do anything to alleviate your concerns, is that correct?
That is correct.
Did you take another step to try to act on your concerns for Aida?
Yes.
And did you take that step at the end of September or beginning of October?
Yes, I made a phone call to Child Protective Services, and I told them that I was a neighbor. So I told them that I had seen Aida being verbally and physically abused by her mother. And again, I made that up. That's not true. But I said it because I wanted to give Aida an opportunity to have FaceTime in person with an agent from DSS away from her mother, where she could tell them that her mother was sexually abusing her.
Objection, Your Honor.
Sustained. You are to disregard the last comments from this witness.
Zach, let me ask this. You talked about Child Protective Services. Is that in South Carolina, is that called DSS?
I think they may be part of the same entity. I'm not sure.
And so did they do anything to alleviate your concerns?
No.
Did that surprise you at all?
No.
In fact, you testified earlier about Virginia and Grace. Did you and your family have interaction with the DSS in Virginia
Yes, we did.
over Grace?
Yes, when I discovered the journal I had mentioned before about Grace's plans to murder my family, we called DSS and asked for her to be taken out of the home. And they did this, and after a few weeks of hearing Grace's stories and lies, they took her side. They failed to recognize what they were dealing with her. And they tried to have my parents put in jail and the rest of me and my siblings put in foster care. And we eventually had to sue them, and it was about a 2-year-long court battle. And that left an indelible impression on me, just as to how even experts can be wrong sometimes. And when they are wrong, it's so dangerous because everyone believes them because they're the experts. But sometimes you know what you know, and you know it's true, and even if an expert might think differently, it doesn't mean they're right. And DSS did a lot of damage to my family in those 2 years.
So ultimately, Grace was removed from your family, is that correct?
Yes.
Your other Russian siblings were not, were they?
No.
And in fact, Faith, one of your Russian siblings, has been in the courtroom all week, is that correct?
Yes.
So you testified to this jury about the information you received from John Melo about his concerns. You've testified to the jury about the documents you consulted about those concerns. You testified to the jury what you came to believe. You testified to the jury about the mailers you sent, about the affidavit you submitted, and now about the call to DSS. After you had done all these things to act on your concerns, and nothing had been done, tell this jury in early October of 2021, what's going on in your mind? What are you thinking?
I was still in the middle of this music project, so I had a lot on my plate there just professionally, and of course I was continuing and even increasing my support to help John save his daughter, Aida. And since June, when I had returned, I had been absolutely convinced that Christina Parcella was sexually abusing her daughter.
Let's go.
Take the jury.